No.
Are we... Okay. Look how nice it is out here. It's so green. And I'm sweating. It's pleasant. Ow, ow. Hello.
That's the best opener.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I was just reading a great book. But I'm glad you're here, because I have something to share with you. About this book.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Okay. So for real. I read another book, and it was really good. I finished reading Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Some of you may know it from the movie that was released in 2007, I believe, starring Michelle Pfeiffer. And actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names. Am I going to get copyrighted? I don't know. Starring a bunch of famous actors. I just finished reading Stardust by Neil Gaiman. It's a kind of creative new way of telling a fairy tale. And it was not what I expected in good and kind of surprising ways. Something I loved about Stardust was how genuinely and original... No, that doesn't make sense. How genuinely original it was. That's what I'm trying to say. It was its own fairy tale without borrowing from anything else, kind of. Neil Gaiman, for anyone who knows Neil Gaiman, knows he has a huge horizon, endless horizon of an imagination. The stories he's capable of coming up with are so creative, just completely out of this world, different world, like literally, different worlds. But he has such a unique way of tying it into a fantastic reality to where anyone, whether you're a fairy tale fan or not, I think would be intrigued and want to know what happens to the characters, where the journey takes them, just what happens in the long run and where the story goes in of itself. And I think that's brilliant. He is a brilliant writer, just so creative, so imaginative, so great. It's magical. It's a very, very wonderful, magical tale. Something I really enjoyed about the book of Stardust is you discover the world and the characters as the other characters do. He does a really good job of setting up the scene, setting up the scenarios, setting up the world as a fairy tale location, but then also helping you discover the rules of the world as the main character goes along. The story of Stardust is about a young man named Tristan Thorne, who is a human, and he lives in the town of Wall, called because there is a wall separating his human world from the fairy tale mystical world on the other side of it. And people are forbidden from crossing the wall. However, unbeknownst to him, he has some mystical heritage in his bloodline. And he decides to cross the wall because he promises a young woman, who he is trying to woo, that he will retrieve for her, to prove his love, a fallen star. Once he finds the star, though, it turns out she's not an ordinary star, as he imagined, like a clump of meteor rock from space. It turns out this fallen star is a young woman, and they have a long journey to undertake together to achieve their goals. Tristan, the human, and Yvain, the fallen star, have a lot of discovery to do with their new boundaries. And as they go along meeting people and finding themselves in tricky situations, you as the reader are in the same mindset with them as they go along. So you kind of have to learn the rules and what's normal and what's expected and just the way of life on the other side of Wall as the main characters do. And that was something I really enjoyed. It didn't take any time away from just getting into the story to go into too much detail about what you should expect when crossing the wall or anything like that. He just went full head on of as if you're there and you have to make discoveries with the main characters. And I think that is very intriguing. I think it's compelling, and it made me want to know more, and I love that. So, for anyone who loves... My assistant is blowing his nose.
Okay. Good.
Okay. For anyone who loves fairy tales, for anyone who loves modern fairy tales, I would suggest this book. It's very good. It's unlike any other fairy tale you've probably read, and I think that is a great thing. Some things I did not fully enjoy about the book was, in my opinion, it left a lot of loose ends. There were some characters who appeared in parts of the book that were never fully explained why they were there, and those loose ends were just never tied up. So in my opinion, it was kind of awkward, and I didn't fully understand their part of the story at all. And it almost kind of gave the feel that maybe there'd be more of the story later, like a sequel or something, but I don't think that's the case. I don't know. But they're just moments or characters that were just never like, they never came to full closure. And that left me unsatisfied, personally. There were several of the chapters just felt really rushed. I felt like he was kind of speeding through to wrap things up. There were a lot of moments where throughout the entire book you were waiting for this grand climax of conclusion, or for things to kind of reach their happily ever after, or just find out the truth about a situation. And when those moments happened, instead of it being this grand thing like you expected throughout the entire book, it was more of like a, here you go, and you're like, okay, that was 2 sentences of that, and now we're moving on to the next thing, and oh, that was 2 sentences of that, okay, that's taken care of, I guess, now, and it just felt very rushed. I would have liked to know more. I would have liked more detail. I would have liked more feeling behind it, personally. And for the characters, too, just they seem so chill in those moments, and it wasn't, I feel like there should have been more discovery on their part. And that's what I wanted, and I didn't fully get that for some of the things that were wrapped up at the end. It just felt very pushed. For example, some of the things that I felt like were pushed or rushed in the story, for anyone who knows the general idea of the plot, there's a moment where Tristan and Yvain are taken onto a lightning ship of pirates, and that whole scene wasn't what I expected at all. It was just a couple pages, and that was it. It just felt very rushed and kind of weird. Also, several of Tristan and Yvain's travels felt very rushed. He just kind of told the reader, Neil Gaiman kind of told the reader that they went to this place and did this, but it was just a couple sentences to tell us that they've been a long way, as opposed to kind of giving us a reason for them doing those activities in those specific locations. There were just a lot of little moments like that where we understand they're traveling, but it wasn't fully described, it was just kind of written down, if that makes sense. And again, like the end of the book, the very end of the book, just wasn't fully, it wasn't as grand as I expected. It was okay. And I don't want to give anything away, but for anyone who's like me and reads this book and gets a lot of high hopes for this huge, amazing, happily ever after that's just mind-blowing, because it's a fairy tale and there's so much that happened, blah, blah, blah. It left me going, okay, good, I guess. So, another thing about Stardust that you readers should be aware of. This is not a children's book. Do not read this to your children at bedtime. Don't. First of all, there's plenty of gore, which is fine, but it's very descriptive. It's a violent story. It's a dark fairy tale. Neil Gaiman writes darker stories. So there's lots of gore, there's lots of violence, just so you know. Also, language. There is plenty of curse words that are shared within this story. And the colorfulness of the words ranges from one end of the spectrum to the other. So it's not just a couple, there's several, and they are lots of different kinds. Also, there are 2, shall we say, romantic scenes The first one appears pretty early on in the book, and it's very descriptive of... I'm not sure how to say it without just like saying the word. I don't know who else is going to be watching this video. They have relations. They're romantically involved physically. They rolled in the hay. They were knocking boots. They had a very intimate hug. When a man loves a woman, you get the idea. There's a second scene that's also descriptive, but not as lengthy, or what's the way of saying it?
Detailed.
Or as detailed. Thank you. So, for anyone who's uncomfortable reading that, or doesn't want their youngins reading it, there's 2 of those scenes in this book. Now you know. The last thing I want to say about the book is, if you've seen the movie and haven't read the book, don't pick up the book expecting the movie. And vice versa. If you've read the book but haven't seen the movie, don't watch the movie expecting the book, as is usually the case. They are very different stories. In the book, the lead character's name is Tristan. T-R-I-S-T-R-A-N. Tristan. In the movie, they changed his name to Tristan, like a regular name of Tristan. I looked it up, and it turns out they did it because it's easier to say on film, basically. But like that's a pretty major change in my opinion, because he's the lead. The Witch Queen in the movie is a very major part of the story. She's a big role. In the book, she's kind of a minor character. She comes and goes throughout the story. So be prepared for that, for you Michelle Pfeiffer fans. And the biggest surprise to me as far as the changing of the story was, in the movie, there is a pirate captain named Captain Shakespeare. He's a decent role in the film, and he helps Tristan and Yvain quite a bit in their journey. And he's a very fun-loving character. The audience can't help but cheer for him and love him, and he's fun. He's the one you definitely remember when you walk away from the film. But in the book, again, that scene was condensed to a few paragraphs. His name's not even Captain Shakespeare in the book. It's Captain... what is his name? Captain Johannes Albrecht. I don't know where they got Shakespeare from that, but they did. So there are a lot of changes, especially with the ending and how things unfold. It's a very different story. It's a very romantic tale. It's very, very adventurous. There's so much that happens, a lot of character growth. It's very, very well done, and it's very intriguing, and I couldn't put it down. Overall, I enjoyed Stardust quite a bit. I would recommend it, and I would read it again. And so, there it is. If you like that kind of stuff, read it. I liked it. It was good. I like the movie too. It's also different, but I like it. I like them both. Whatever. I like them both. Okay, that's all. I'm going to read a passage from Stardust to you guys, so you can get a taste of his style of writing and a little bit of a taste of the story, which is really good. There is only one break in the wall, an opening about 6 feet in width, a little to the north of the village. Through the gap in the wall can be seen a large green meadow. Beyond the meadow, a stream, and beyond the stream there are trees. From time to time, shapes and figures can be seen amongst the trees in the distance. Huge shapes and odd shapes, and small, glimmering things which flash and glitter and are gone. Although it is perfectly good meadowland, none of the villagers has ever grazed animals on the meadow on the other side of the wall, nor have they used it for growing crops. Instead, for hundreds, perhaps for thousands of years, they have posted guards on each side of the opening on the wall and done their best to put it out of their minds. So good. Don't know if you can see him, but he's handsome.